from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. Lone Star Community Radio is supported by listeners like you. Donate and sponsor today. For more information on getting involved with Lone Star Community Radio, contact us at lscrstudios@gmail.com or visit us online at www.irlonestar.com.
You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZWLP Conroe and 106.1 KZCCLP Conroe and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Good afternoon, everybody. I told y'all I was going to be signing everything I say, and so if some of it, sometimes it may take me a little bit of time to say it, but I forgot to say good afternoon. This is the sun, it's like in the afternoon, and this is good. So I remember that I wanted to one day sign everything I said and explain how I got into interpreting long time ago. In the 70s, I started interpreting because I saw The Miracle Worker when I was, like maybe 12 or 13, and I loved that movie. And I wanted to sign, and I wanted to be a teacher and all that. And then after I learned the alphabet, I found it in a book, and it was just drawings of a hand: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. I wanted to learn how to spell all these words that I couldn't wait. And that's all I knew was just the alphabet. And so there was a girlfriend of mine that sat in we called them shacks. That's in Milby. We had shacks that we went to school in, and they were outside the buildings, and you could see into the class across the way, and she knew the alphabet, so we would talk to each other that way, and we'd spell different words, and it was so much fun, and I loved it. I wanted to be that kind of teacher and interpreter. And so later on, I found that our preacher's wife was going to be teaching a sign language class. And I went, finally, I'm going to get to learn sign language. And it'll be so much fun because I then can start, talking to different deaf people. And it's going to be so much, to learn that language and meet all those friends. It was going to be great. So I went to the classes and learned as much as I could, and I thought I wanted to be like the preacher's wife because she was signing the sermons, and it was just beautiful, and the songs were beautiful in sign language, and so that's what I wanted to do. And so after, the classes had been maybe 3 months into the classes, I decided I wanted to sign a song, and I asked our teacher, was it okay? And she said, okay, but you have to go home and practice all the words to that song, and then you sing it. So I'll do that. Please let me sign the song. She said, of course. Okay, Cindy, next Sunday. And I got up there. I was so nervous. I had never been so nervous in my life. And I stood up, and I started signing. And I looked down at the deaf people, and they were looking at me so strange, and like, what was I doing wrong? And after it was over, they explained to me, Cindy, how do you say fly? And I told them, well, it's I think it's like this. I'm flying, the airplane flies. Yeah. Well, you said, and Jesus flew to heaven. Did you mean to do that in a jet airplane? And I went, no, I just thought that was the sign for fly. I said, no, that was wrong. And then you also did a sign that was very, very inappropriate for a sermon about the Apostle Paul. You said he wanted to get, and the word was revenge. And so when I read in the book how to sign revenge, it just gave you a description, like take this finger, touch this finger, touch this finger, touch this finger. And so that's what I did. But it wasn't the word for revenge that I did. It was really a bad word. And I'm not going to tell you what the word was. But it was bad enough that they had to come and tell me, don't ever do that again, because they would start laughing and they go like, no, she didn't mean to say that. So they thought it was fun to watch me sign, because they know that they knew that I was, I'd just been learning a little bit, but I thought I knew it all. And I would make mistakes, and it was funny for them to watch the mistakes made. Anyway, I remember signing, and I thought I had done a really good job. And Larry Butler, you know who you are, yes, came up to me and said, Cindy, what's wrong? Your hands, it looks like someone that washed their hair and they couldn't do a thing with their hair. It's like, that's what happened to your hands. Did you wash your hands before you came out here and started interpreting, and that messed them up? I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't do anything. They said, yes, you made a lot of mistakes, and we're going to have to sit down and go over them again with you. So it was a fun time learning the sign language, and I would go over to Yvonne and Larry's house almost every day, so that I could sit and watch them sign and learn the street language, because there was a street language, there was a medical language, there were so many different, subject matters that I needed to learn the language of. And so I wanted to interpret in the courts. And so they said, well, they're always needing, interpreters. And so I said, well, I wanted to volunteer to be an interpreter in the courts. And I thought I was good enough and knew enough to do that. They said, well, we may need to teach you a little bit things that are kind of maybe you might be embarrassing to learn the signs, because there are signs for all these, these words, but sometimes they're pretty descriptive. So I said, well, teach me. And they were right. I just hoped that I got a case where somebody was just driving too fast and got a ticket. I didn't want to have any kind of sex talk on sitting in the courtroom. And so I went to the courtroom, and this boy was sitting over here, and they started talking. And so I started signing, and the judge says, no. What are you doing? I said, well, I'm here to interpret, and I'm signing everything you say. And he said, no, we don't want him to know what we're talking about now. So you just wait. I'll tell you when to tell him what to say. I said, no, I can't do that. I'm sorry, I can't do that, because I'm hired to sign for this boy. And if he's sitting here and y'all are talking and he has no idea what you're saying, that's not right either. That's not legal for me not to sign to him. And so the judge talked to one of the lawyers, and the lawyer said she's right. It was so scary, because I'd never talked to a judge like that before. And the boy was so confused, what was happening. And he kept asking me, is everything okay? Am I okay? Are they mad at me or what? It was a good lesson for me to learn that. Well, anyway, from there, I wanted to do a lot of different ways and places I could go to sign and interpret for deaf people. And I was watching TV one time, and they were talking about in New Orleans, they had an interpreter for the news on as I think it was like a 5-minute newscast, and they started having her interpret it. So I went to New Orleans and asked them how did they get this on the air, and they told me that they got a sponsor for it, and it was, and it was doing really well because people loved it, and there's a school there that has a large deaf community, and so they loved it. So it was great. So I went to the different TV stations in Houston and asked them, could I sign their newscasts for the deaf? And they went, well, how many deaf people are there? And I said, well, it was like 1 in 10,000 would be deaf and that would need this. And so they thought, well, we don't know if that's going to be enough or not. And they thought, we have to consider it. We're going to have meetings on it. So I went to Channel 13. And I went in and talked to someone that I had met there before. And they said, well, what, do you sing or anything? And I went, yeah, I can sing. I can play the guitar. And what does that have to do with me signing? And they said, well, if you go on this program called Dialing for Dollars and you sing, you'll meet Paul Schmidt, Bob Hilton, Betty Rogers. You'll meet people, and they can introduce you to the news director. And that's where you need to go. And they will say that you've been on the show and you're fine and all that stuff. So I did that. And I got an introduction to the news director. And he said, okay, let's come down this hall. And we're going to have a meeting. We're going to have a meeting right then. And I went to the meeting, and they asked me a bunch of questions. And how do I know how to do this? And I said, if you don't like me signing this, there's other interpreters that are much more experienced than I am. And so if you want that, I'll be glad to get you in touch with them. And they went, no, we want you to do it because you brought it to us, and that would be fine. And if you'll do the 5-minute newscast, I think we can agree that let's do that, because our FCC licensing tells us that we have to do something for the community, and this will be a first in Houston, so let's do that. And I said, great, when do you want me to start? So they said, let's start this next week on Monday, and we'll do some publicity on it. I said, okay. So that's how I got on Channel 13 and did the 5-minute newscast. But I wanted to tell the deaf people, and so after I got on 13, started interpreting, I called for a meeting of the deaf community to come together, and I wanted to introduce myself and say, this is how this happened, because I was not an interpreter they'd ever seen before. So I had the meeting, and I was trying to tell them that I wanted to have another interpreter. And if they don't like me, then that's fine. Tell me, and I will tell 13 that you need to get a new interpreter for this. And they raise their hand. No, Cindy, we think it's great because we have so much fun watching you, knowing that you'll probably make a mistake during the news, and it's just been a lot of fun to watch someone who's not so perfect. So I went, okay, that's, I think, great, and I'll do that. So anyway, I had told them this story about when I was growing up, the people behind my house, the mom was deaf, and the children were not, and we played together all the time. And when their mom would come out, she would yell at them to come inside, and it sounded so weird to me. It scared me, the way she sounded whenever she spoke. And so I would run off. She would try and say hi to me, and I was too embarrassed. I didn't want to try and say hi. And so at that meeting, I told them this story, and I said, I wish so bad I could see her again, but they moved, and tell her how sorry I was that I treated her that way because I was just embarrassed. I was young, but I still should have never acted like that. And now I know better. And I was telling them the story and finishing the story, and the door in the back of this room where they all had gathered opened up, and I just saw this white hair growing across the back of the room, and she came. It was her. It was the lady that I had grown up. She was behind my house as I was growing up, and she came up to the stage, and she hugged me. She just hugged me and hugged me, and she said, "Cindy, it's been so long since I've seen you, and I'm so proud of you, and that we knew you when you were little growing up, and I just want to tell everyone, this is my friend Cindy." I cried, and the people who were sitting in the audience that just heard me say the story were crying, and it was great. I felt, okay, I was forgiven, and that was wonderful. So I went on. I interpreted for the news for 10 years. I interpreted the news on 13, and they were great to me. And from that, PBS had asked me, would I be interested in doing a program because there's so much interest in learning sign language. And I said, yes. And so they said, well, write us up, what you would do, and then we'll consider it, and we'll do it. And I was so excited, and I went home and I wrote the script out and wrote one for 6 programs. They wanted a show. And so I told them I wanted to interpret songs because songs were the most beautiful way to watch signing. And so they said, okay, that's fine. And then I told them I wanted to have some funny things in it because the deaf have a great sense of humor. And they love jokes and things like that. So I thought, we'll do some funny things. Like I had this monster, like a monster hand, come up out of the steaming as a volcano looking thing comes out and taught the alphabet. So this monster hand comes out of the volcano and starts teaching them A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And, they came back and said they loved that. That was so funny to see that. And it made people, actually it helped them learn the alphabet. So we found different ways to be silly and funny with teaching, like the seasons of the year and all. And so we called it Signing with Cindy. Wasn't that clever? Signing with Cindy, and it was 6 shows, and they played the shows back to back, so it became like a 13-week program. But they just kept playing it, and they kept playing it, and it was and it went national, and it was this lady from New York would call and say, "We want to play it again. Is it okay?" And I said, "Of course, yes, play it." And in California, that was New York. In California, they had called me and said, "Can we play the show again?" We have about 3 different stations that want to play it across California. So I said, yes, that's great. So anyway, Signing with Cindy was doing really well, and I had written a book that went with it, and that was selling, and it was great. It was so much fun. And then I got a letter. Well, I got a phone call from a man that had worked on Signing with Cindy, and now he was working on the Johnny Carson show, on the Tonight Show. And he said, Cindy, you need to watch Johnny's show tonight. I think you'll be surprised. So I watched it that night, and Johnny Carson says, I have been watching this program called Signing with Cindy, And I've learned so much. It was so much fun. And the guest that he had was sitting there. They said, "That's what I want. I want to learn sign language. I want to learn that." And he says, "Well, you have to watch on Saturday mornings. It's called Signing with Cindy." I got so many people, I have friends saying they talked about the show on the Tonight Show, and so it was really exciting. Then I got a call. Well, no, I sent him the book, and I signed it. I autographed to Johnny Carson. Yeah. And I sent him the book, and I got a call from someone that was his assistant to Carson. So they said, "Listen, Johnny Carson wants you to be on the show." And I went, "On the Tonight Show?" And yes, yes. And I was like, "What?" I was just yelling. I said, "That is so, I can't believe it." He said, "Yes." And when can you make it? I said, whenever you say it's okay, I'll go. That's fine. And he said, "Okay, but here's the deal." And he told me the rules that, you don't, if you're a woman, you don't wear pants, no pants. You can't ask him about his divorces. And it was weird. I wasn't planning. I didn't even know about it. But it was rules that you had to follow. And the other thing is that you have to write your own interview. So you don't just go and sit there and Johnny Carson ask you all the questions. No, you had to write your own interview. And so that was really strange. And then you write what you would answer. So I did that. I did that and flew out to L.A. And I'd never ridden a limo, like someone picked me up in a limo like this. And so the guy had my name at the airport. There was my name. And so I said, "I'm Cindy Cochran." They said, "Okay." And then everybody was watching because he said the Johnny Carson show, Cindy Cochran. And when they were watching, like, "Who's Cindy Cochran?" That's there. And so they kept watching, and I came off the airplane, and they go like, "I don't know who that is. That's nobody." And so I got into the limo, and they put me you sit way in the back, and the driver's like way in the front. So I moved up to the front, and I said, "Is it okay if I just sit here and ask you questions about where we're going to go and all that?" And he said, "Yes, of course, but normally that doesn't happen. No one wants to talk to me like that." So I loved the driver. It was so fun. And from that, after I did the Carson show, I was called by people who wanted me to move to LA, and they were going to do all kind of great, wonderful things, and we're going to make you a star and all that. And I said, "Well, I'm going to have to commute because I'm not leaving Houston to do this." And they said, "Well, but you have to." And I said, "No, I can't do that. I can't leave Houston." So they said, "Well, think about it, and we'll talk to other people, and we'll find out how we can get you make the move." Because I told him, I said, "I have a husband and he's working," and it was so strange and surreal. And then I got a call, and they wanted me to come back to the show, to Carson again, like a second time. And so I did that, and it was amazing, because I guess at that time there was only like 3 channels. There was like channel 2, 13, 8, and 11. And that's all we had at that time. So I think everybody knew about this, and this was a big deal. And people started coming up to me and wanting my autograph. And my husband and I would go out to eat, and they would come over and say, "Hi, can we have your autograph?" Right in the middle of while you're eating. And I thought it was great. My husband didn't like it at all. But it was like an amazing awareness that got sent through that one program about the deaf. And the show is about how the deaf live, play, have jobs. They're just the same as you and me, and they can communicate through signing. And it was great to be able to be like a part of that. I was so happy because I had Yvonne told me a story that happened after the show was on the air and played in Houston all the time, and she said, my daughter told me, she said, Mom, I was embarrassed to have people come over and see that y'all are deaf and you have to sign and all that. But since that show came out, now they want to meet you and they want to come over. And she said, it was so great to have my daughter proud of me. I didn't think I'd ever hear that. So it was amazing. Those kind of stories make you feel like that's what it was all worth it for that. And so I think all the people I've gotten to interview, meet through that one program, because after that I went to, I guess, Time Warner. I went there because I wanted to do production and do TV things and the commercials and all that, and I wanted to also do programs that I could have that could be signed, and that more and more things on TV. But about that time, the Congress passed a law that took line 21 on your TV set, the different lines, and they had that one line that they were going to give to the hearing impaired, and they would have that as a way that all of the programs could be captioned. And that's when caption came into being. And it was great. I mean, of course, they didn't need me anymore because it was all captioned. But it was a great time for the deaf people who felt like, okay, now they know who we are, and now we can watch TV with everybody else. And they loved music. I went over to Larry and Yvonne's, and they had records. And I said, how do you enjoy the music? And they said, well, you were the first one we saw sign the songs on TV. That brought a lot of attention to music in the way that we would enjoy it. But we can feel the vibration, and we watch singers, and the singers that they loved were, this killed me, Jim Nabors. You remember Jim Nabors? He was Gomer Pyle, and he sang, his mouth is so big, and he enunciated every word they could understand because of how he spoke. A lot of times the deaf would say, we can't understand people with beards, that have beards. It's hard to understand, to lip read them. And unless they're signing, we can't get it. And so I thought that was really interesting, and that Larry said, we do have advantages of being deaf, especially when we argue with our wives. All we have to do is just close our eyes and the argument is over. And I went, really? I just laughed. And he said, well, it's true. It's true. It's the way we get through, probably, and why, they stay married. But I think that all the nuances, like when someone comes to the door, how do you know that they're at the door? They're knocking, they ring the doorbell. And then they started showing me all the technology that they had. Was like that somebody rang the doorbell, the light would flash on and off in their house, and they knew somebody was there. And then they say, when the baby cries, how do you know when the baby cries? And they said, because the alarm they have, same thing, the light flashes. And then when they wake up in the morning, they wake up with an alarm that flashes. And I said, well, then how do you know not to go to the door to get the baby? Isn't that confusing? And they said, no, it's a different light. So anyway, it was funny. Like, Cindy, we've got this covered. We know what to do and how to communicate. And I said, well, but you can't communicate over the telephone. They said, yeah, we can. With a TTY, it's this big machine, and they could type back and forth to each other. And they had a coupler with the phone. They put the phone on there, and then they would type, and those signals would then type the word out on their machine. And anyway, so now you can imagine now with the phones now, they can even have FaceTime. And that's how I would communicate with Yvonne, with FaceTime. And it was so much fun to see her, and we signed each other, and we thought way back then, never believed this would happen. And I remember when I found out that they had, the way that they communicated, everybody had these TTYs. When I found that out, I thought, this is the way they could communicate with the police department or the fire department. It would be a way for them to call instead of having to run across and try and find somebody's house and bang on the door and then write a note, please, and, my house is on fire, or my husband's having a heart attack or something. They would be able to go directly to the police station. So I went to the police and asked them, could we do this? They didn't know anything about the TTYs. They didn't know that there were that many deaf people in Houston. And so they were like, okay, fine. And we got a TTY machine, put it into their control center, and they started getting calls like immediately. And the deaf people wanted to see if it was real. Like real, I can really call somebody now and you'll come and help me. And it was the fire department. I was going to go to them next. And the police department had said, well, wait till, let's get the publicity out that the police department's doing this first. And I said, why? I said, well, the firemen can get it later, but let us do this first. So I said, okay. So they did it first. And I announced this. I have a meeting with the deaf people, and I announced this is happening, and you can call the police now, and they'll come and help you. And so in the back, this man stands up and says, hello, my name is, and I'm the fire chief of Houston, and I want you to know, and all the deaf people to know, that it's okay for the police department to get the publicity first. That's fine. But we want to help you. And so we will put the TTY in the fire department as well. And so that if you have a fire, you can call us. I felt so stupid. And I went and told them, I said, I'm so sorry. I mean, that's just what the police told me. If you want this in here, let us do it first. And I went, okay. So anyway, that all happened. And now, of course, that's been taken care of. And the improvement in technology and all that has helped the deaf so much. It's been great. And so from there, I started interpreting at a church and working at a church doing their videos, but I was interpreting at the church, and it was wonderful. And I started teaching classes, and so it's like it all came around like to the beginning, how I went to church and I learned how to sign, and so much came from that. And I learned so much and had such great friends. So it was odd that from the beginning, I always wanted to be on the radio. But being on the radio meant, I couldn't sign and anyone be able to see it. But now this was the streaming and all, and this is live on YouTube. So I texted Yvonne this morning and said, I'm going to be on YouTube this afternoon for the Cindy Cochran show. And she said, what? And you're signing? I'm going to sign everything I say. And so I want you to watch it. And I love you guys. They taught me so much. If it wasn't for you, I never would have done it probably. So I thank you for doing that. And I know that they're very, a lot of people in the deaf community know Larry and Yvonne. And so I just felt like this might be a time that I can say to you guys how I got started in all of this and some of the stories that have come from this that has helped a lot of people. And that's all, to God's glory. I'm just so happy that I was able to do it. And I'm going to ask Richard. Richard is the man that is controlling all the electronics in here. So I'm going to ask him we're going to take a break. Just take a break and we'll be back in 2 minutes. Don't go away, okay? We'll see you in just a minute.
Listen in Mondays at noon to hear Conroe news from local nonprofits, businesses, upcoming events, Conroe Park events, news stories, and information that matters to you with your host, Margie Taylor of Taylorized PR. For more information about being a guest, visit irlonestar.com/Conroe Culture.
Did you know there are more than 790 abused and neglected children currently in foster care in Montgomery County? Will you help make a difference? I'm Allie Stevens with Casa Child Advocates of Montgomery County. We train and support volunteers to be the voice of children in the foster care system. Kids removed from their home because of abuse and neglect, and we need volunteers just like you to advocate for these children. To learn more about becoming an advocate, please visit CasaSpeaksForKids.com. That's CasaSpeaksForKids.com.
Listen in Mondays at noon to hear Conroe news from local nonprofits, businesses, upcoming events, Conroe Park events, news stories, and information that matters to you with your host, Margie Taylor of Taylorized PR. For more information about being a guest, visit irlonestar.com/Conroe Culture.
Health Center Southeast Texas is a federally qualified health center. We accept Medicare, Medicaid, and most major private insurances. For our self-pay patients, we have a sliding scale discount program available. Our health centers have qualified providers and staff striving every day to provide the best quality of care to our patients. Services offered are family medicine, behavioral health services, telepsychiatry, and pediatrics. We have 4 area locations. Look up the Health Center Southeast Texas online at hcset.com.
Hey, tune in to the Bridge Podcast TX Tuesdays at 11 a.m., where we are connecting commerce with community, interviewing business owners and leaders in the community, allowing the audience to peek behind the curtain of what inspires, motivates, drives these individuals to have meaningful, positive impact in this community. For more information about the show, log into irlonestar.com/TBPTX.
And we're back. Okay, I'm listening to the Cindy Cochran Show. And I know the people that are listening to this on the radio in their car on 106.1 and 104.5 probably have gone like, is she signing? And it's on the radio. But you can see this. If you missed any of this program, you can see it on YouTube. And it's the Cindy Cochran Show. And it's on YouTube. And you can also on the Facebook of the Lone Star Community Radio. And you can watch it again and again and again. And I know that's really how I learned sign language. Again, I'd watch people and have them tell me stories and just ask everybody, you know, like, what's the sign for this? What's the sign for that? And I remember reading newspapers and trying to fingerspell every word. And we go by a sign, and I would fingerspell every word. And if you're interested in learning sign language, YouTube has so many great, really good videos. The videos that they have now, you know, you can learn that from the, you know, the ABCs and the different types of sign language. There's a signed English, and that's what I do, signed English. So it's I guess the correct for, you know, for us, it's the subject matter and the pronouns and all that happen in this order. And then they have signed American Sign Language, and that's saying things that get the subject matter in the beginning, and it's very weird to me because I never learned that. I was old school. So they have all that the different ways that you can learn, and it's so much fun to do. And if you go to my Facebook, it's Cindy Robinson Cochran, and I have 4 lessons. I do something like signing with Cindy, but I'm not doing the music. I'm just teaching the, you know, like family signs and animal signs and things like that. And so much of it is, I mean, it's really clear about what it would be. This is a sign for elephant, and you know, you think, of course, that's elephant. And this is giraffe, and this is what dog. And so there's a lot of different signs that are just very easy. But the best sign this is mosquito. And I thought, what does that mean, mosquito? And they're depicting the mosquito's stinger going into you. Like, anyway, so but it's so much fun. And the sign for female is from the nose down, because the women are the talkers. And I know this is probably nobody wants to hear this, but the nose up are the male, because they're the thinkers. So this is man and this is woman, and this is mother and this is father. So I think that it's interesting. That was way back when those signs were invented. I wonder if it's still the same. I think it is, because that's just the basic of sign language. But I remember they asked me to interpret at some large meeting, and I said, well, what sign do I need to know? American Sign Language? And I said, I'm afraid they're not going to even understand me. And they said, no, because anyone that knows sign language, you can probably go to any country and you will be understood by other, you know, deaf people that sign. They'll be able to communicate with you, you know, so much easier. So anyway, that part of it is good. And I remember now this is way back when, but the Olympics were just starting, and they were having a difficult time for all of the, you know, the athletes coming in from different countries and communicating. And this was before the technology of just being able to take your phone and, you know, say, okay, I'm going to do this in Spanish, and now you need to interpret it in English and show it to someone. So your telephone could translate for you now. But back then, no. So I said, now, if you want, I can give you more of an international sign language, and you guys can, you know, learn it, and everybody could be able to communicate with each other. And so they, Mary Lou Redden was coming over to our studio. And so I talked to her about it, and then she introduced me to the guy that would be in charge of that. And he said that they have something coming out where they won't need that. They're going to be able to translate immediately what someone's saying, And so it was just the beginning of that. It was so exciting. So you saw a lot of different changes that happened for those athletes. But it was exciting just to be able to talk to some of those people about it. And so if you want to become an interpreter, there's so many ways that you can learn and become associated with any of the clubs that they have in Houston and around. Now I don't know about in Conroe, but in Houston I know they have a lot of different clubs that you can join, and you can learn through that. And you really need to be around the people. Just learning it from a book like I tried to do, it never worked until I got with the deaf people and learned the sign language through that. And it was great. What a journey. It was so much fun. And I think that if you really have that in your heart to do that, you just have to start practicing, and you have to practice all the time, and you'll learn it, and it'll be great. And I found this is the best way to use the sign language for kids is you teach them the alphabet, and then they start spelling, and they have to spell their words. And if they come home and they have spelling homework, but I don't think they even do that anymore. But if you have spelling homework, you can teach them, and they will learn how to spell. And I went to a school, and I said, if you'll let me go into a class and give me 6 weeks with that class, I'm going to have their grades from, maybe the C's and all that. They're going to be A's. You won't believe, because the kids have something tactical that they can have as they go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it's great. They will remember it. And we did that. The experiment worked great. And I thought, okay, now it has picked up. It started picking up where teachers were teaching all the kids the alphabet. But what happened, where it failed, was that the teachers only taught them the alphabet, but they never connected it to the words that they were learning to spell in that grade. And so that was disappointing that they didn't do that. But if your children at home, if you want to help them with their spelling, and you see what they write, the way that they write notes, or they were starting to write stories and things like that. Because after I would go speak, I would speak at so many different schools. And after I'd speak at the school, they would send me notes, so precious notes and so sweet. But I could hardly read them because the spelling was so bad. So that's what really helped me, encourage me, to start trying to see if we could get this in the schools. And eventually, it was in the schools, but they just didn't connect it to the spelling words and to help these kids to remember the words, how to spell them. So if that's one thing that's a great advantage of learning to sign. So I just wanted to give you that, and thank you so much for letting us into your home. And Yvonne, thank you. I know that you're watching, and I'm so excited to be able to communicate with you this way. And now that you've seen this, you can tell all your friends that how you really helped me. If it wasn't for you and Larry, it wouldn't have happened. So thank you. And I want to tell everybody that that listens to this program, normally, is that we have a way that you can help us as well, is by donating. You can donate, and you go to Lone Star Community Radio, and it will give you the information of how you can donate. And if you want to be a sponsor of this program, it would be great, because we will, you will then have your name on this program by being a sponsor. So there's so many different ways that you can help this programming and this radio station for this community, because we try and bring you, a lot of the interesting people that work here, and just interesting stories, and also about the businesses that are here. So this radio station has done a lot for the community, and it's all because of Richard. He shook his head. He said, okay. He said, yes, it's because of him. Anyway, okay, I just want to tell you thank you for joining us, and we will soon be here next Tuesday. Tuesday we'll be here. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, live at 2 to 3 on YouTube, and this is recorded right now. If you missed anything, go to YouTube, and this show will be up just almost immediately after we finish. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Beautiful weather. Enjoy. And first responders, we love you so much, and God loves you more. Thank you.